Killer Klowns from Outer Space is an American sci-fi horror comedy which was produced by brothers Charles Edward and Stephen Chiodo with their production company Chiodo Brothers. It was written by Charles and Stephen Chiodo and directed by Stephen Chiodo, so very much a family production. It stars Grant Cramer, Susan Snyder, John Allen Nelson, Royal Dano and John Vernon. The film was distributed by Transworld Entertainment and was released on the 27th of May 1988. The film had a very low budget of $1.8 million and was a huge success at the box office, with a domestic total of $15.6 million in the US and a $28 million return overseas, making a worldwide gross of $43.6 million. Killer Klowns' box office return reflects its reviews, which were mostly positive upon release, and the film soon became a cult classic among horror fans. The film starts with Mike Tobacco, Cramer, and his girlfriend Debbie Stone, Snyder, are parked at a Lover's Lane type area just outside their hometown of Crescent Cove. Suddenly they notice a bright, odd looking object falling from the sky. At the same time, farmer Gene Green, Dano, sees the object crash and assumes it to be Halley's Comet. Green sets out into the woods to find the area where the object had impacted. Instead, he stumbles upon a large circus-like tent structure. Green and his dog investigate, and unknown to Green, his dog is captured in a net. Believing his dog to be in the tent, Green angrily punches the tent, hurting himself. He threatens to tear the tent down with his bare hands, but gets some kind of electrical shock after touching one of the wires holding up the tent. While on the floor, Green is confronted by a mysterious clown-like alien who zaps Green with some kind of pink beam from its ray gun. Mike and Debbie arrive shortly after to investigate the site for themselves. They enter the tent-like structure and discover it not to be a circus tent at all, but to be a complex of bizarre interiors with lifts and various rooms with otherworldly machinery. In one of the rooms they find a number of pink candy floss on the racks in the shape of cocoons spread around the room. Mike rips off some of the floss on one of them, and to their horror reveals Farmer Green, who has been gelatinized. One of the clowns spots Mike and Debbie, and as they run away the clown shoots popcorn at them from a type of bazooka gun weapon. The couple manage to escape the tent, but then are pursued through the woods by the clown and one other, who is using a living balloon dog to chase after them. Mike and Debbie knock over the clowns while managing to get away in their car. The two clowns get up, and from there on, with a number of other clowns, go about bringing mischief, mayhem and murder to the town of Crescent Cove. Killer Klowns from Outer Space was filmed in Watsonville, California, and also at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. The original title for the film was Killer Klowns, but the Chiodo brothers realised there was a high chance the audiences would assume the film to be a straight slasher, so they added From Outer Space to stop that from happening. In the film's original finale, Deputy Dave, Nelson, dies when the clown ship explodes, but this was changed after audiences in test screenings desired a more upbeat ending. Before Killer Klowns, the Chiodo brothers were known as special effects artists who had worked on films such as Critters and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The brothers also went on to work on Team America, World Police, and various occasions on The Simpsons. One of the times was to create a puppet segment for the episode The Fight Before Christmas.
Well, introductions. I'm Stephen Chiodo.
I'm Edward Chiodo.
And I'm Charlie Chiodo.
So you can blame us. Everything in that movie, you can point to these three guys and say, they're responsible.
I mean, it was a labor of love for us because even before we got into production, we've been thinking about this idea for many years. You know, started just conversations about, you know, what's the scariest thing you could think of driving along a dark road. And it was if you looked next to you and saw a clown peering at you from another car. I don't know where the bug came from, except we grew up in New York watching $1 Million Movie, which was running King Kong, Mighty Joe Young, Godzilla's, you know, and Rodan, all the Japanese movies.
Oh yeah, and living in the Bronx, in close proximity to Manhattan, when we saw King Kong, he was like walking around in our neighborhood. And in fact, we went to the Empire State Building to see the spot where he, the crack in the cement that he made when he landed.
So Mom and Dad were always supportive. You know, Dad took us to the monster movies and the matinees and stuff. You know.
So when we were older, we got a camera, a Super 8 camera. Actually, it was an 8mm camera, and we started recreating those famous films that we saw when we were young. We did stop motion, we did puppets, and we started making films in the basement.
Yeah, I don't think they really understood what the drive was to tell stories, create images. But they were supportive, but they always, in the back of their mind, well, learn computers, learn electronics, have something to fall back on. But they never discouraged us. I mean, they bought us the cameras, they bought us the film, got us things processed. So they are very supportive in that manner.
Yeah, I went to I went to an art school. Stephen went to a film school. Edward went to
Many schools.
Many schools. Yeah. About to study the entertainment, technical, performance aspects. So. There was always supporting, but they always wanted us to, possibly take the civil service exam, so we'd have something to fall back on.
Yeah, but it was always art. What we were creating was stories, but art. Charlie was an illustrator, I was a sculptor, and Ed got involved with more the engineering and mechanics. And everything we've done in our careers, both in filmmaking and both as effects supervisors, we just throw tons of art. It's sculpting, it's painting, it's sewing and welding. It's all these arts and crafts thrown together. And the best thing is making a film, utilizing all of that art.
Even today, I still don't think they really understand what we do, but we seem to be doing okay.
I mean, was it important that we have to make people movies? No, we like the monsters. We wanted to make a monster movie.
While the Chiodo brothers were well known as special effects artists, much of the special effects work were carried out by other artists, allowing the brothers to focus more on their production duties. However, the brothers did personally construct a miniature set for the Clownzilla sequence. During the filmmaker's initial concept for Jojo the Clownzilla, the gigantic clown who appears at the end of the film was to be created by using stop-motion animation. It was decided though that the rubber suit would be the best option, and was portrayed by Charles Chiodo.
And the executive producer, the director, Edward, they said, forget this, it doesn't work, let's get rid of it, throw it out. And I went in there and I said, no, this is the whole conception, this is the initial concept of the whole freaking film. There's gotta be something here we can use. So I go in there, I went with the editor, I sat down with him, I said, let's make this thing work. And I said, this shot is good, that's good, this car, this close-up. And I took everything that wasn't crappy. And then I made a montage. I put together with Chris Roth, I put together a sequence. It's an abbreviated sequence from the original plan, but at least it's in there. And there were two cuts, was it one stop motion or two stop motion cuts?
Two stop motion cuts
that we did with Fantasy 2 and Gene Warren, where we went to the traditional thing. We made a small little 5-inch clown puppet, put it on a rig, and photographed it frame by frame in front of a rear screen projection. What was the trick on setting those things up? When you're setting up a perspective shot, what's the...
Well, given the fact that you weren't really bigger, we went into going into slightly wider lenses in order to increase your height. We did put you up in the air, but it just looks a lot higher than it is when you go to a 18mm lens. The perspective shots now that we did down here were a little different because we were also shooting at very high speed.
Action! Get her out of here, Mike! No, now, Mike! Come on, guys, move! Parker. Action! Mike, get her out of here!
No!
Now, Mike!
Dave!
Come on, guys, move! Parker.
Explain to the fans, the rate that you choose, the frame rate, and why you choose to 200 or 300 frames per second. That the normal operating speed of a camera is what?
24 frames per second. So, well, it has to do with the scale and how far something moves by gravity. It's the best way to determine it. If I drop something 30 feet, it takes 1 second to fall. And if you build something half scale, 15 feet high, it's only going to take approximately a half second to fall. There is the acceleration rates, but just to make it simple, so you would shoot somewhere close to 48 frames a second twice to make it appear that action would happen the same it would at full scale. And the same thing, it would drop down to 1/4 size. You'd have to keep increasing your frame rate.
I remember that because of the accelerated frame rate, that I had to do things 3 or 4 times faster. So I had to hit my marks like this, where in film it looks like I'm going pounding maniacally on this on the ice cream truck. I was actually beating a drum really fast. So on action, Charlie, you start dragging that thing towards you. 1, 2, 3. Get your feet locked real good.
I got 1, 2, 3 now.
And follow through, even if it's not a good throw. I want you to follow through.
Okay, just get that bottom towards us, that's all. All right. Lights on in the back. Lights on in the truck. Here we go.
Speed! Action!
The popcorn gun which was used by the clowns in the film included a compressor that would allow the weapon to actually propel popcorn. It was the most expensive prop made for the production, taking a total of 6 weeks to create and cost $7,000. The legs of the clown's balloon animal dog were given 3 coats of latex by the film's special effects department in order to keep the balloons from popping on the pine needles, which cover the grounds during the chase in the woods.
We spent $7,000 to make a practical working popcorn gun. I did a drawing and the guy sculpted, molded it, matched it, put a working air mortar in it, spinning popcorn in a fan, and it worked for the one shot we used it in the picture. And Philip said to me later, I could have built you something like that with sparkless bottles and stuff like that for about $100, and I believe him. And I think we could have, and I've taken that philosophy with me now when I build things. It's not that important to follow a drawing necessarily. The feel would have been there. Something as simple as the balloon animal and the balloon dogs was a difficulty because when you put them on the ground, balloons popped as soon as they came in contact with something like a pine needle. Little things like that. So all of a sudden, you know, who has to think of a solution? They said, Charlie, you know, what do you do? You know, the balloons are popping. We can't shoot. So I go, well, let's get some latex and put some latex on the things. You know, take a hairdryer, dry it. That problem was solved.
Most of the vehicles used in the film were rented and therefore were not allowed to be damaged. 2 cars were accidentally damaged. One was driven off a bridge, although it was only intended to roll a short distance. A Jeep filled with webbing needed $3,000 of repairs after solvents in the webbing damaged the interior. The Chiodo brothers wanted to cast comedian Soupy Sales as the security guard killed by the clown's acid pies, as he was known for receiving pies in the face in his children's television show, Lunch with Soupy Sales. However, the executive producers did not want to allocate funds to pay for Sales' plane ticket to the production, as they felt the audiences would not know who Sales was. The film's original score was composed by John Masari, who has also done scores to films such as The Wizard of Speed and Time and Kickboxer 5. Masari has also done the scores to Retro Puppet Master, TV's 24 Conspiracy, and Disney's Tinkerbell, A Fairy Tale. The score has a fun feel to it throughout most of the film's runtime, but at times perfectly takes a subtle in and out approach to its darker changes in pace and tone. For example, in the scene where one of the clowns is communicating to Dave at the police station, using Officer Mooney, Vernon, as a ventriloquist puppet. The theme song Killer Klowns, which was written and performed by American punk rock band The Dickies, perfectly oozes with what the film represents. It's quirky, fun, puts a smile on my face, and for me is always a great listen. A sequel has been in development hell since the original film's release. One was planned by the Chiodo brothers, which was scheduled for a 2012 release, which sadly didn't happen. Then in 2018 the Sci-Fi Channel was in talks to acquire the rights to the film to make a TV series, but sadly that fell through as well. After Disney had bought 20th Century Fox, it was discovered that Fox had intended to make a sequel titled The Return of the Killer Klowns from Outer Space in 3D. Sadly though, like many of the 200 plus projects in development, Disney cancelled it. so who's to say when we will, if ever, get a sequel. I remember watching the film around the time it arrived on home video in the late 80s. If I remember rightly, I did enjoy it, but I wasn't blown away by it. Probably due to the fact of being fairly young at the time and didn't really grasp what the Chiodo brothers were trying to accomplish. Now 30 plus years later and being in my mid 40s, my knowledge and understanding of the world, and in this case film, has of course changed since last watching it. Of course seeing and understanding it now as it was intended, a serious film with darkly humorous undertones weaved into the narrative, but over time has lost what horror impact it did have upon its release. The way most of the cast execute the script, it is hard to take the film seriously in any way, and you can tell the Chiodo brothers cast and crew had fun making it. My final thoughts on Killer Klowns from Outer Space are that it is a fun B-movie horror comedy with a share of cheesy acting and dialogue. For its minuscule budget, it has imaginatively designed creature clowns, great special effects with some original ways the clowns dispatch their victims, an effective, perfectly balanced score, and a killer theme song. Well guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my retro review of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Please do tell me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Also, if you are new to my channel, please click like, subscribe and all in notification options, so you'll be kept up to date with my latest reviews. Please take care of yourselves guys, and I will catch you next time.